Okay, this is the second video on the subject of creating and using classes in VB, or object-oriented programming in VB. This time we're going to actually look at what objects are and what they do. So this page is indicating that there's something we've created called a dog class, and you'll see on the left a picture of a dog, and this is, we're going to say, the dog class. On the right, you're going to see we have instances of a dog, and so these dogs have been instantiated. There's a dog class with certain properties, methods, and events, and these are instances of the dog class. We can call these objects or instances. Those are more or less synonymous. We can say these are all instances. They have different values for their properties, but they all share certain properties. And these properties might be their breed, their color, and their size. They have certain methods. Perhaps any dog can sit, stay, and come. I guess we know that's not really true, but this is an example. And they have events, and this means things they can do that other aspects of a program can respond to. So it could be beg, bark, or scratch at the door. A concept that exists with object-oriented programming that you may or may not have heard of is called encapsulation. And so what that means is, for every type of dog, we need to identify those certain attributes that make them a dog and make those part of the class. And so the class has certain attributes, and every dog needs to have those attributes to be a member of that class. So we're saying that all of these dogs have the properties of breed, of color, and of size. They have methods to sit, stay, and come, and events to beg, bark, and scratch at the door. Abstraction is this idea that you must consider the characteristics and behaviors that the objects will require. The characteristics are going to be the variables in the class, they're variables, and the behaviors become sub-procedures or function procedures. The variables inside a class used to store properties should be private, so that data values are accessible only by procedures within the class. An important concept in object-oriented programming is data hiding, which means we try and keep the information inside a class completely private. We completely avoid the use of certainly public variables. So we actually make special procedures that allow things to access data, and only when it's necessary, so that whoever's designing that class has control over how that information is accessed. Each object you create from a class generally has its own set of attributes that are called instance variables. So each instance has its own set of those variables. Each dog, for example, would have its own breed and color. There's also shared members, shared attributes, and shared methods. And what that means is there's one member that can be used by all objects of the class. And it's generally used for totals and counts. So there's not really a good example to tie in with the dog class unless every dog had a copy of the total number of dogs that have ever existed. And that's not a real thing. Instance members have one copy for each instance of the object. When we're creating objects, you'll usually create what are called get property methods and set property methods. A get property method is used to control access to a variable that exists within an object. And it's a good way to have that variable itself be private, so it can't be accessed except in a way you specify. The get property method can also be called an accessor. Similarly, you can validate and assign property values through the set property method, which can also be called a mutator. And so this is a good way to have the validation as a part of your business logic, and that's what a set property procedure is, with examples to come shortly.